Have you been looking for work for what feels like forever? I don't know if this is good news or not, but you're not alone, and it's not your imagination. The market is really weird and tight like now. In my many years of experience working in this field, I've never seen anything quite like it. So you're not alone, and lots of people are in similar situations to you. This isn't to discount anything that you may be wondering about ageism, racism, sexism in your job search, but I'm seeing that it's a tough market for everyone. I'm seeing recent college grads struggling. I'm seeing people with engineering backgrounds, folks in tech, you name it. People are having all kinds of problems. And certainly, fields where there are fewer opportunities to begin with are being a little bit harder hit. So it's not something that you're making up. It's not anything that you're doing wrong. However, there are some tips that I can give you to help get over a little bit of this so that you can continue to stay engaged, move forward in your job search, and not feel quite so anxious about the state of things. So, the first thing I might recommend you look into with caution is the possibility of doing some volunteer work. Now, you're going to want to be sure you A, time limit the work, and B, find things that are relevant to you. How you define relevant can change, obviously, depending on what you're hoping to get into. However, make sure that whatever you decide you're going to be spending your free time on is something that appears to be likely to drive things forward for you. So, for instance, a board where you could potentially meet future employers or a related nonprofit to whatever your chosen industry is. Something where you can gain very specific and measurable skills that you feel like you lack or need a little bit of polishing up on. Things like that are going to really help move things forward for you. So don't just volunteer for the sake of volunteering, at least not right now. You do need to reserve some energy to dedicate to your job search. And so, too much of a time commitment in a volunteering capacity is going to be tough for you. Next thing you can think about is maybe some reskilling or upskilling. What you seek for all of this is going to depend a lot, of course, on your financial state and the resources available where you are. But if you feel like money is a little bit tight, or if you're in a straight up panic about your financial situation, you can absolutely look for free resources. A lot of these are things you can find at places like the public library, and depending on your community, at some workforce centers or unemployment officers or what offices, whatever they're called in your community. So, depending, these may be places where you can go and find some classes that you can take. Sometimes they even offer free certifications or trainings and things like that. If you don't mind a little piece of physical work in what you're doing, you can also look up your state's apprenticeship programs. These tend to be in the skilled trades, so things like plumbing, HVAC repair, that kind of thing. Look them up and see if there's anything available to you that seems like it might have some appeal for you. It's not a problem if not. I can't imagine myself becoming an electrician, but that is an option that's out there. And what's nice is that a lot of these apprenticeship programs are, in fact, paid. They're not very well paid, but they are paid. The next thing you can do is look for part-time or easy type jobs just to tide you over. Don't worry too much about how, working, let's say, stocking grocery store shelves will look on your resume. There are a couple of things we can do about that when the time comes. So we could, for instance, put any unrelated work in a bottom section of your resume called something like other professional experience. Or we can pull out the things that you have done in that job and demonstrate how those relate to what you might want to be doing. So things like customer service, attention to detail, any new software you might learn doing that, etc. I know that it's a tough market even for these kind of part-time entry-level type jobs. You're also going to want to be picky if that's a route that you go, because anything that doesn't feel even kind of sustainable for you obviously isn't going to work. So, have some criteria that you set out for yourself related to this. But do think about what things there are that are compromises you would be pretty okay taking for the short term. 6 months to a year, somewhere in there, right? And then the final thing you can consider, in addition to like all of that networking and all that good stuff, is some kind of freelance opportunity. Depending on what you feel like you're good at, depending on how much you can demonstrate that you have particular skills, you can look for freelance opportunities. There's a website called Freelancers Union that can be really helpful. And you can also look at job boards like We Work Remotely and things like that. So I'm going to link those in the bottom here in the description so that you can find any of those resources. Now, if you have been out of the paid workforce for more than a year, one other thing that you might consider as sort of a postscript here is something like a returnship program. I've blogged a lot about returnships in the past, but essentially, returnships are internships for adults. They were originally created for women who had been out of the paid workforce in caretaking roles for a while. People who stopped working to raise children, which is its own kind of work, but you don't get paid for it. Um, those who were engaged in the care of an ailing relative or an older relative, things like that. They've expanded since then with the recognition that there are other reasons that a person might be out of work longer term. So look for some programs in your area or in fields you're interested in. I'm also going to post a link to some of those here at the bottom. But those can be a nice sort of foot in the door. For getting back into the workplace. Again, because these function a lot like internships, you'll find that most of them are not super well paid, but they're a way in. And they are generally designed to be somewhat short term. The idea is just to kind of reintroduce you to the world of work in case there are skill gaps, tech gaps, that kind of thing. Um, However, important to note that much like a regular undergrad type internship, a lot of companies that have returnship programs do have an eye to hiring their what are return shippers, whatever they're called, at the end of the program. And even if they aren't able to do that, you should also be able to begin meeting some folks in this new world. And that network could potentially really help to get you into the next thing. General tips about going through this process, though, are just the same as anything else. Take really good care of yourself. It's frustrating, it's crazy making, it's going to make you question your own value in the world. So be sure you're taking really good care of yourself. Ask friends and relatives to support you in specific ways as they can, and take little breaks from your search. The temptation with things like this is to go all in, right? To find every single thing you could possibly apply for and just spend hours and hours just solidly applying. People will set numeric goals for themselves. I'm going to apply to 30 jobs this week and things like that. And the problem is, well, there's a couple of problems. One is that it's simply not sustainable. You'll burn out, you'll get exhausted from just the job searching process. And then if you're like most folks, what'll happen is you'll spend just 3 weeks not even applying for things, during which there may be some really great things that are posted and you could miss them entirely. But the other thing that could happen is that if you set these arbitrary number goals for yourself, you're also not really able to customize your application materials because you've set a high bar. And then you're just going to basically be spamming these employers. Chances are really high in that case that a human being isn't even going to look at your application. And if a person does look at it, it's going to be somebody like a recruiter who doesn't understand anything about the specifics of anything is overstating it, but doesn't understand the job particularly well. And so your very general resume isn't going to answer that recruiter's questions about how you are a fit with this job. So if you can, pull back a little bit, slow down, keep the pace realistic and manageable. If you're getting unemployment, obviously you need to be applying for however many jobs are required in your part of the world to keep those benefits coming in. But other than that, try to slow down a bit And do really continue to do things like customize your application, reach out to people you might know within the organization, and generally take really good care of yourself. Figure out how those little rewards and breaks are going to work for you as you go through this process. But main thing I want you to know is that this isn't your fault. You're not doing anything wrong in this process. What I'm finding through all of this is that finding something is just going to take old-fashioned persistence. So keep going as much as you can and tap into whatever resources are available to you. Many places have emergency housing help if you can't pay your rent, things like that. So figure out your local resources, keep at it. Join job search support groups if that's helpful for you, and try to keep the faith. I know it's rough out there. I am sending you all kinds of good luck. I hope you find something that is at least manageable very quickly. Take care.